let's move on to our final topic of this cricket discussion for today, Cotter. It's your favorite subject, coaching. Let me talk about coaching.
Yeah, I do quite enjoy. I think it's probably must be part of my DNA, like being a teacher, and then always coached since about the age of 15. So in both football, cricket, and netball. So yeah, it's something must be a vocation of mine that I'm called to do.
Yeah, but the role of the coach within a team is very important, isn't it? And we touched on that earlier on in this discussion.
Yeah, it's such a unique. I think in cricket, a coach is a very unique role because you don't have that input during the game as such. Like you think of other sports such as Aussie rules. They've got a runner who can run out to players during the game to send messages. You have 3 breaks during the game plus your pre-game to speak to your players. Whereas in soccer, I guess you have a bit more voice from the boundary, or if you have any European listeners, football, there's a lot of voice from your manager or coach from the sidelines.
Yeah.
But in cricket, it's very much the captain seems to take on most of that role during the game, and your on-field leaders. So I was probably in a privileged position to be able to coach and be a player at the same time, which was its own challenge because you didn't want to step on the toes of the captain and the vice captain during the game, but also to still be a leader and just send a message that you've been sending all season. So I found that there were some times to be able to, teach the skills that were required. Not necessarily the skills, but just to get a player to work on their technique and just one thing that they can do better to better perform their role. And I think we had some good conversations, myself and players, about their role in the team, how they're going. Just having general chats socially as well. I think, and that it built really good team culture. Which I think it's the number one job of a coach is to manifest a positive culture and to develop that.
That's true. It is. It's important to get that all right. But did you take that responsibility on yourself this season that I'll volunteer to be the coach this season and make sure the team improves?
Well, I didn't really volunteer. I was sort of asked by our club captain to be the coach. I'd sort of been doing just some stuff in the pre-season, working with players. I'm just having chats with them, and he sort of identified that. I was like, "Why don't you be our coach?" And I was like, "If you want me to, okay, I guess." I had a bit of time to think about it. But yeah, when I think at the end of that, I just want each player to become a better version of what they already are. Trying to change them fundamentally as a player, but just trying to improve on the little things that they're doing that they could do a little bit better, which they're showing that they've got an ability to perform, but just trying to improve little things along the way rather than fundamentally change their technique is not my role. Like if they want to try to do that, then they can in their own time. I'm just there to help them identify little things that they can do a bit better, I think was my role this year, and to, constantly talk about our goal and our objective, which is what we wanted, a premiership. We didn't deserve it. I think some people in the team might have felt that we deserved it from the previous year. But it was just changing that language to being we want it. It's not what we are entitled to. It's what we want, and that's what we're working towards. And there's things along the way and values that we probably instilled in the team to ensure that we didn't get ahead of ourselves and that we were always focused on the job at hand and knowing that at any moment our fortunes could change.
Absolutely. And that's very important as well. I think of the coach as sort of a mentor, an advisor to the players, someone you can rely on, as we talked about before, someone you can go back to as a player and a mentor or someone. That's what the coach is in a team. Obviously, you mentioned before, Luke, that the coach is helpless, especially in cricket when the players are on the field. You can't control what they do. You can only instruct them to how they should play. But at the end of the day, it's up to the players in how they perform.
Yeah, it is. And I think the one probably a coach can have impact on game day is as a team working together, set team goals or team expectations.
Yeah.
And then it's up to the players in order to buy into that and execute and follow those expectations and work towards those goals on game day. But yeah, the players have a huge role to play there where, the control is taken away from the coach. I guess that's in any sport, but there's just a lot more control taken away from the coach in the game of cricket. So you have to be ready to let go and let the players play, but also have some fundamentals that, have to be met.
Absolutely. And so another thing is that I think in this modern era of coaching, we've got a lot of coaches, the head coach, the assistant coach, the batting coach, the bowling coach, fielding coach, a lot of coaches. But I want to go back to the old days, Luke, where the game wasn't a professional sport. It was an amateur sport. You didn't have a coach, and players fought on their own 2 feet, took their own initiative. I think we're sort of lacking that in this modern era. Don't you think?
Yeah, probably a bit of, trying to think of the word for it, probably a bit of just self-motivation, I guess, would be the big one, and the intrinsic motivation to want to get better and to have a bit more of to problem solve, I guess, on the spot, on the fly, is really probably a skill that probably in amateur sport has disappeared. And you can even see sometimes in professional sport that, it does look like it's like a formula being followed, rather than there being the natural talent just coming through. I think T20 does have a bit of that, but there's all these rules brought in, and you can already see spinners are the ones taking wickets, so you know how most teams are going to open up with a spin bowler. So the ability to problem solve does fall away when there's all these different coaches in the professional sphere.
Absolutely. Especially with all analytics and stats these days. Players tend to play with the numbers, but I think we need to have that bit of initiative every now and again, instead of go away from the numbers.
Initiative. Yeah, just to be able to. It's good to have that data to back up what you are doing, but to be able to. Sometimes the plan doesn't work, so you need to be able to think on the fly and think, okay, how can we change? To get this player out, what can we do differently?
Absolutely. And we need to go back to that, I think, in this modern era in cricket. It's a sad thing, but that's a sign of the times. Different eras. Obviously, back then it was different, not a professional sport, whereas it is now. So you're going to have lots of coaches there. Did you notice that with the team this year, Cotter, that they took their own initiative and put that upon themselves this season, the team?
I would say yes and no. I think we played more as a team this year than what we probably have in the past. We're more, I like to call us a machine, and we're all cogs as part of that.
Yeah.
I think the initiative that was shown was that we were there to support each other and not let someone else have to fire us up. That we did it, the players did it individually during the game. Whether that was on the field or whether that was, at a drinks break, we were held accountable to each other. And I think initiative comes from being held accountable. If you're being held accountable, you're more likely to do something off your own back. So I think the initiative that we showed this year was, being able to support each other in order to reach the team's goal. And that we can't have any passengers along the way. So people were staying in the game mentally longer.
Yes, that's absolutely important as well. And that's an important tip for any young cricketer out there or coach. Make sure you go with your gut instinct at the end of the day. Go with your initiative. And that's very important in this modern era of coaching. Your approach with the team this year, Cotter, was it to be a hands-on coach, be a bit laid back with the players, or?
It's probably what I was speaking about a bit earlier about coaching. There's no coaching style. There's no one size fits all. So I knew with some players I didn't need to speak too much with them. I just have a quick chat with them here and there throughout the season. But generally just I guess they probably did have more initiative than other players. In their own knowing what they needed to do, and were very reflective on their game. But then with other players, it was more conversations, more chatting about their game, getting them to identify what they do well, what they need to improve on. I think my main role was to just keep us on track for that goal, and how I interacted with each individual player was unique for each individual. But yeah, it was very much about a team first approach rather than individuals. And myself working one-on-one with individuals. I think it was more so a team first approach and giving that support where needed throughout the season.
Absolutely. And for everyone out there, everyone's a different coach. No one's a copycat. You have your own style or your approach to coaching your team, whatever. The international coaches like Justin Langer, a lot of people don't like his style of coaching, but that's how he coaches. Many coaches have different styles, but they can get better as a coach. Cotto, you can get better as a coach. You have to improve with the job over time.
Yes, you do. I think you have to be aware of your players and how they're responding to your direction, I guess, and the culture that you're building, and also understanding that what worked last season for a player might not work this season. And it just comes down to listening and being open to being flexible as a coach, and understand that players are going to be, some will be more flexible than others. So it's ever changing. You have to be able to relate to each individual well, and that's going to change every season because you have new players into your club, and some players leave, and a player might change their approach to the game. So you have to change your approach to how you coach them.
Absolutely. It's all about being adaptable.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's an important word in cricket. You've got to adapt to everything. As a player, conditions, as a coach, different players, different environments, different situations. Depends how the team's going. You're losing a few games, you need to change things up a bit. It's very important. How you're coaching the players, Luke, it's very important to teach the basics, batting, bowling, and fielding to the players. And work on the fundamentals.
Yeah, the fundamentals. That's a good word for it. I think the fundamentals is you need to have the fundamentals of the game are to be able to not get out and to be able to score runs. You have to be able to, as a bowler, to dry up runs essentially and find a way to put pressure on the other team. And as a fielder, that goes hand in hand with the bowler, is to keep pressure on the team and make it not a 1v1 but a 11 versus 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fielding side of it, like fundamentals, backing up throws, getting into position, even though there's no chance to run out, just moving to that position in case there is. To behind the stumps and to back up that throw so there's no overthrows. And I think that's what we went back to this year, was just the fundamentals, the key things in cricket to be successful. Making sure we field well, making sure we bowl well, making sure that we bat as well as we can. And that we understand how the other teams play. Because if we try and play one way against one team, it's not going to be the same
against the other team.
Exactly. Yeah, you won't. If we're going to try and beat this team, we're not going to play the same way as we would to beat another team. So
absolutely,
we need to just keep it simple and have a clear plan for what we're going to do. And the fun comes back. Fundamentals won't change each game. You have to bowl tight lines. You have to field well and take your catches. So it's as simple as that. And you want to try and not get out by being able to protect your wicket to a good ball. That's the fundamentals, really.
Yeah, being hesitant is the word to use there as a batsman. It's very important as a batsman not to fear getting out, because you will get
No.
out in cricket, either
Mhm.
by an error in judgment or a good ball by the bowler. And you have to tuck your bat underneath your arm and walk off and say, well bowled to the bowler. You won that
Yeah.
battle, but I'll win the next one. It's all about the mental side there again. What about embracing players with different techniques, Cotter? We often get caught up. People had a go at Steve Smith for the way he bats, but that's his technique. And people
I
say
think
they don't like it. It's weird. People expect every player to be perfect, back to the old days, perfect stance, back lift, whatever. But the MCC coaching manual was thrown out years ago. The game's moved on, it's evolved. Everyone's different in this modern era.
Yeah, I think coaching adults, you can make small changes to technique, which will make big improvements, but you can't overhaul their technique.
Yeah.
I think if you do that, there's going to be more going backwards before you go forwards. We've got some very, interesting techniques in our team, but I've seen them that they've been able to perform, and be able to score runs.
Yeah.
And bowlers who are able to still bowl quick and take wickets or bowl to keep their role. And their technique isn't necessarily what I would say being correct, but it has changed. I think with kids though, it's very easy to like we mentioned it before, that they see a lot of how the professionals play.
Yeah.
And I think it's key there to still be teaching kids fundamentals and being able to block a ball before they can reverse sweep a ball. And
Absolutely.
I guess that's the same for some adults still playing the game. If you can't block the ball while you're playing a reverse sweep. So I think, there is a time and a place to let players have their own technique as a batter or bowler, but there's also some key things that do need to be met in their own technique of how they're going to be able to play a defensive shot.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily make a huge overhaul of their technique. It can be done when you're younger because the brain's still developing, but as an adult it's really hard to change that. So
it's all muscle memory.
It is, basically. And it does get harder to teach new things. I think in the professional world it's a bit easier to make larger changes because of the time they have, but in the semi-professional and amateur world, it's you got to make small changes that will hopefully have big impacts.
Yes, and obviously we're not a professional sort of comp, really.
No.
So there's a big difference there between professional, semi, and obviously amateur. But I think it doesn't matter how well you look. Cricket's not about looking nice. If you score runs ugly as a batsman, who cares? I say. If you get the job done, that's all that matters. Basically,
it doesn't shine the scorecard where the ball's going or how you're playing your shots.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about embracing yourself as an individual and a personality, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the bare bones about it. Obviously, Cotter, the season ahead for the team. What are your plans for the season as a coach, planning forward for next season?
For next season, I think is to, it's going to be, because we've had that success now, it's tapping into that self-belief and understand, look what we've been able to achieve, but hey, we've got a whole new season here and it doesn't mean anything. We're not premiers anymore. We're not a grand finalist anymore. We're back to square one. We're 0 wins, 0 losses. And we've got another 15, 16 games to go before, we have that opportunity to take the premiership. So I think my mentality and approach for next season will be pretty similar to this season. Is that we know what we want. We don't deserve it. We're not entitled to it. And we need to work hard to get there. So I think my approach to the overall goal won't be any different. There might just be some hungrier teams next season, especially with a new team who made a grand final against us, who haven't in a long, long time. That there's going to be some improvement there from that club, and that it's not just going to be a 2-horse race anymore.
Absolutely. It's all about getting better, and other teams will get better as well. It's all about improving your game as a cricketer, and we always look to get better in this game. To finish off on Cotter on this subject, before we finish up this discussion overall, it's been a great discussion. We've got lots out of this discussion today. Your advice for any young coach or coach coaching their team next season, what advice would you give them in this job?
I think, one, be yourself. Listen and observe a lot before you give advice.
Yep.
Because sometimes advice is the last thing you need to give. Sometimes a lot of players will figure it out for themselves just by talking, and they probably already know before you give them advice.
Yep.
It's probably more so giving them assistance to reach their own goals, as long as those goals are in line with the team. So set clear expectations for your team, and then just listen, observe, and I think if you can do that, you'll set a really good culture for your team, because you'll be modelling what you want your players to do. So that's about it, really. Just be honest.
Yep.
That'll bring trust, and it'll bring a culture which will ultimately lead to success in some form in the future. And it's up to you guys to define what success is.
Absolutely. And to finish up on that, we play this game for success. At the end of the day, you want to play in finals and win premiership because you remember them. And obviously, no doubt the team remembers this premiership, and they're going to remember this for a very long time in years to come. It was a significant moment. So that's why you play this game of cricket. Well, it's been a very great discussion today, Luke. I've enjoyed it immensely. I hope you have as well. And I hope you...
Same goes, Jack. It was...
and hopefully everybody else at home as well enjoyed it as well. Thanks to Luke for joining me today, Luke. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully we can have you back on in the future.
Thank you, Jack. Hope so too.
Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoyed our third and final part of our cricket discussion on coaching, an important topic within the game of cricket. Hope you enjoyed part 1 and 2 of our cricket discussion on mental health in cricket and the mental side of cricket. Hope you got a lot out of this cricket discussion. Thanks to Luke for joining me for this cricket discussion. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page, and follow us on Twitter. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.